welcome back. If you are new to the channel, I am Marquisa Lamise. This will be my third video. I'm very proud of myself for staying consistent. Consistency is super hard for me to do for some reason, but I'm working on it, and it seems like I'm getting better. So I'm proud. Okay, so this video is about telling my family and friends about me being pregnant. Okay. And sometimes I take notes because it's just a lot on my mind sometimes. But so telling my family and friends. I think in the last video I mentioned me telling my mom. And honestly, I was shocked at her reaction. So last video I was saying that my reaction was I was unhappy. But when I told my mom, she was shocked actually. But she wasn't unhappy, which was surprising because I know her expectations for me was high. So I was just like, oh, she might be disappointed. And that's what I was afraid to hear. But surprisingly, it was the complete opposite. She was excited. Um, and I was here for it. I was definitely here for it just in case I did decide to keep my baby, and I did. So I wanted to know who was supporting me in this process, and my mom was my number one supporter. So I appreciate that. When I told my siblings, my brothers and sisters, they were excited. I told my aunt, and she was excited, but she gave me some advice, and her advice was just understand that you're doing this alone. And I took that advice and sat with it. I thought about it because I didn't want to be alone in the process. I didn't want to be alone as a parent in the process of pregnancy, as a parent, the entire time that my child and I are alive, you know. So, but I thought that was some real advice. So I took heed and prepared myself for the moments that I felt like I wasn't going to be supported. Um, when I did tell my friends, they actually were not so positive at all because we had goals, and I understand. Like they were just trying to be real without trying to hurt me. Um, and they're like, it's not gonna last. Let's make it make sense. Um, you want your partner to be there with you. You don't want to do this alone. You know how hard it is. You live through that life. Why would you put your child through that too? And I wholeheartedly understood where they came from, you know, which is why I was willing to make the decision to cut ties as well. Um, but a part of the reason why I kept my son was because, well, first and foremost, I did want my baby, but the second reason is my mental health. I didn't want to think about not having my son every day of my life once I made it, whatever that perception is to you, right? So I didn't want that. I think about that show Being Mary Jane and how she was thinking about what if I would have kept my child? And that's exactly how I felt like, while I was pregnant and making a decision. Well, what if I don't keep this child and then I never have a child again because I will never, ever make a mistake and choose the wrong person ever again. The only way I will be a single parent is if my husband passed away. My husband. So that thought process went through my mind, and I was like, I don't want to go through that because that hurts, that hurts. So So I heard my friends loud and clear, and I think they were looking out for me and my future, and I appreciate that because I do look out for myself as well. Um, but even though they thought what was best for me was to let go of my child, um, I just, I still love them, and I just decided to keep them. That was just their opinion, and I've learned at a very young age not to um, make someone else's opinion mine, my decisions. You know what I mean? So my decision stuck, which was keeping a baby, you know, and that was that. It wasn't because of anyone else. It wasn't because my mom said so. My baby father said so. It's because I wanted my baby. At the end of the day, I just didn't want to do it alone. But it is what it is. Um, yeah. And I wasn't shocked at their responses at all because my mom is coming from the grandma standpoint. Like family is coming from family standpoint. Like, oh, somebody finally had a baby in the family, and I get to love them so much. So I get that. And then my friends are out here grinding with me. We out here, you know, struggling in college and trying to make it. So they like, girl, we got a future to think about. Like, don't do this. What about when you do find your husband? What would he think? And it's going to be harder because people usually want you to have their first child. All these things did come into play and come into my mind, but I was like, it is what it is. I made a choice in my life, to be unprotected, and I got the result of getting pregnant, and I'm sticking to having my baby, and that's it. But kudos to the people that chose themselves, and I hope their life is still great regardless. Hope they still got the kids that they deserve. You know, um, and I say that because you know, even though I do, I'm single. I've been single for a while, and it sucks. It's lonely, but you know, I hope I get the love that I deserve. From my significant other. And if I never get one, just because people look at me as a single mom, whatever the case may be, because sometimes that's how it feels, is what it is, and I accept that. Like I accept that, and I move on, and I'm going to continue to grow as a person. And I just wanted to share my story, and I hope that somebody felt me. So this episode is a little short because that's really all I wanted to talk about was like the reaction of my family members and friends, and um, how I took the reaction and what I did with that. Like I didn't get upset with anyone's answers. Either way, I don't see no wrong way. Excuse me. I don't see no wrong way at all with any if I decided to go one way or other, because either way, I chose what was best for me. That's how I feel. Okay. What I did want to do this time is talk about the verses that we talked about in the Bible. So we were reading Genesis verses 8 through 24, 8 through 26. I'm sorry, 8 through 26. And I was like, I didn't get what the purpose was in the Bible. I really didn't. So I asked you guys to comment, your thoughts and everything. But I also wanted to double back and make sure I did get it, because I can't move forward if I don't understand a part of the story. You know what I mean? That's like somebody telling me something I didn't understand what they just said. So now I'm just not even paying attention for real. So I think that defeats the purpose of reading the Bible. So I went back and looked up the meanings. Like what does this verse mean? What does this verse mean? So I looked up the meaning of verse 8, which is when Cain killed Abel. in Genesis chapter 4, verse 8. And that was put in the Bible because that was just the first time murder happened in the Bible. Pretty much. I was like, oh, okay. So I'm like, man, it's juicy, but I ain't really understanding why we reading that. So murder was done in the Bible for the first time, and when someone committed murder, which was Cain, God um, showed him mercy for being a sinner, and also showed justice. You know, so that was good. Like he punished him, and he took responsibility for what his child has done. Like, why would you just do that to your brother? So now you are going to deal with this for the rest of your life, and it's going to be cursed, you know, and your family is going to be cursed. And that's kind of harsh, my G. I ain't going to lie. That's kind of harsh. It is what it is, I guess. But it has me intrigued. It definitely has me intrigued as to know why, my mama was as harsh as she was with these punishments because God didn't play. So why did my mama play? You know, it makes sense now. Anyway. Anyway, now we are on Genesis chapter 5 in the message. And I'll just read it to you. So, Genesis chapter 5, the family tree of the human race. This is the family tree of the human race. When God created the human race, he made it godlike, with a nature akin to God. He created both male and female and blessed them, the whole human race. When Adam was 130 years old, he had a son who was just like him, his very spirit and image, and named him Seth. After the birth of Seth, Adam lived another 800 years, having more sons and daughters. Adam lived a total of 930 years and he died. That is crazy. And then he had kids after 130 years. What are you doing having children? That was just a joke. But okay. When Seth was 105 years old, he had Enosh. After Seth had Enosh, he lived another 807 years. Having more sons and daughters, Seth lived a total of 912 years and he died. What were they eating to live this long? This is not making sense. It's making me think the years is not actually years, honestly, but because ain't no way you are old. Or maybe we just eating the wrong stuff. I don't know. um, when Enosh was 90 years old, he had Kenan. I mean, they was living their life, okay? And you know what? If we actually lived for that long, maybe we wouldn't feel as a rush to have our own kids. I think. Like maybe if I knew that I had a lifespan of almost 1,000 years, maybe I'm not thinking about no kid at all. Like at all. That's crazy. Oh wow. Okay, back to verse 9. When Enosh was 90 years old, he had Kenan. After he had Kenan, he lived another 815 years, having more sons and daughters. Enosh lived for a total of 905 years and he died. I don't know if y'all noticing, but like as the generation goes on, it's like they die earlier. Like the first person died at 930, the other one, Seth, died at 912, and then Enosh just died at 905. Like, why the numbers going down? When Kenan was 70 years old, see what I'm saying? 70. And then they get younger too when they had their kids. He had Mahalalel. After he had Mahalalel, he lived another 840 years, having more sons and daughters. Kenan lived a total of 910 years, and he died. Okay, so that was around 7. Okay. I was like, now what's going on? When Mahalalel was 65 years old, he had Jared. Okay, so they are though getting younger as they're having kids. Okay. After he had Jared, he lived another 830 years, having more sons and daughters. Mahalalel lived a total of 895 years, and he died. When Jared was 162 years old, he had Enoch. After he had Enoch, he lived another 800 years, having more sons and daughters. Jared lived a total of 962 years, and he died. When Enoch was 65 years old, he had Methuselah. Enoch walked steadily with God after he had Methuselah. He lived another 300 years, having more sons and daughters. Enoch lived a total of 365 years. That is a big difference. Like, I wonder how they passed away. Enoch walked steadily with God, and then one day he simply he was simply gone. God took him. When Methuselah was 187 years old, he had Lamech. After he had Lamech, he lived another 782 years. Methuselah lived a total of 969 years, and he died. When Lamech was 800, when Lamech was 182 years old, he had a son. He named his son Noah, saying, "This one will give us a break from the hard work of farming the ground that God cursed." Mm. After Lamech had Noah, he lived another 595 years, having more sons and daughters. Lamech lived a total of 777 years, and he died. When Noah was 500 years old, he had Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and that's the end. So with this chapter, it pretty much sums up the title, which is the family tree of the human race. Literally, they're telling us the family tree. We don't know how they lost their lives or anything. There wasn't no story behind it. They just gave us the family tree. So I think I got that one down. And also, it sounds like it's connecting the creation with the human race. And that was that. And that ends chapter 5. So next time I make a video, we will read chapter 6 of Genesis. And that's all for today. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye.